Welcome to the Heartbreak Chronicles, where every story is a raw reflection of life. Hit that subscribe button to stay tuned, give us a like to show your support, and share this episode with your friends. Don't forget to leave a comment and let us know what you think. Now, let's dive into today's story. On the top floor of an opulent skyscraper in the heart of New York City, a grand annual meeting of the bar is in full swing. The lights were bright, the champagne was splashing, and the well-dressed guests were gathered in twos and threes, talking and laughing. However, in the midst of this sea of joy, there was one person whose heart was as cold as ice. Nathan Wright, a talented 35-year-old architect, is standing alone in the corner of the ballroom at the moment, an untouched glass of champagne in his hand. There was a polite smile on his handsome face, but those deep blue eyes hid pain and disappointment that he couldn't hide. Nathan's gaze cut through the bustling crowd and locked firmly on a woman at the other end of the ballroom. That woman is his wife, Olivia Bennett, a reputable lawyer. At the moment Olivia is surrounded by a group of men, she elegantly holds her glass of wine and occasionally lets out a silvery laughter. Nathan watched Olivia flirt with the men, and the anger and pain in his heart was like hot lava, almost consuming him. They've been married for 5 years, but at the moment, Nathan feels like a stranger, standing outside his wife's world. Just then, a slightly drunken voice interrupted Nathan's thoughts. "Hey Nathan, why are you standing here alone?" Nathan turns around and sees Olivia's BFF and co-worker, Emma. Emma's face was a little tipsy, but there was a twinkle of concern in her eyes. "You know, Emma, I don't really fit in." Nathan forced a smile, trying to hide the ripples inside. Emma sighed and gently patted Nathan's shoulder. "I understand, Nathan, but you can't be like this all the time. Olivia, she's just socializing. It's important for her career." Nathan laughed bitterly, his gaze once again falling on Olivia in the distance. At the moment, she was standing with George Edwards, the senior partner of the law firm, and the two were extremely close together, seemingly whispering something. "Socializing?" Nathan's voice held a hint of bitterness. "Emma, you and I both know it's more than just socializing." Emma opened her mouth as if to say something, but ultimately chose to remain silent. She knew Nathan was telling the truth, but she didn't know how to comfort the tormented man. Nathan took a deep breath and downed the champagne in his hand. His gaze became firm, as if he had made up his mind somehow. "Emma, can I ask you to do me a favor?" Emma nodded and looked at Nathan with some confusion. Nathan removed a beautiful gift box and a ring from the inside pocket of his suit and handed it to Emma. "Please give this to Olivia when she gets back. Just say, it's a New Year's gift I left for her." Emma took the gift box and ring and suddenly realized what was going on, her eyes widening in surprise. "Nathan, you're leaving?" Nathan smiled slightly, a smile that held both relief and determination. "Yes, Emma, it's time to end this." With that, Nathan turned away and disappeared into the bustling crowd. Emma stood still, looking at Nathan's back, her heart filled with mixed emotions. Meanwhile, Olivia is reveling in the mingling and merriment. She stood gracefully beside George Edwards with a charming smile on her face. George was whispering something in her ear, and she laughed out softly from time to time, a sly glint in her eye. "Olivia, you are radiant tonight." George's hand absently rested on Olivia's waist. "How are you considering our new case?" Olivia deftly avoided George's hand, but the smile on her face didn't diminish at all. "George, I always take my work seriously, but let's not talk about business on an occasion like this, shall we?" George smiled, a hint of hidden desire flashing in his eyes. "You're right. So, maybe we could find a quiet place and have a good talk?" Just then, Emma hurried over and interrupted the conversation. "Olivia, your husband asked me to give you this." Olivia took the gift box and ring from Emma with some surprise, her face momentarily frozen. "Nathan? Where's Nathan?" Emma shook her head with a hint of reproach in her eyes. "He's gone, Olivia. He said it was a New Year's gift for you." Olivia's hand trembled slightly as she slowly opened the gift box. However, when she looked at the contents of the box, her face instantly turned pale. The box contained a stack of photographs, each one clearly documenting an intimate scene of her with a different man. Some of them were even filmed in her and Nathan's home. Below the photo, a copy of the divorce papers was attached. Olivia felt a wave of vertigo as her vision began to blur and Emma's voice exclaimed in her ears. Then everything went dark. When Olivia regains consciousness again, she finds herself on the ground, surrounded by people. Emma was kneeling beside her, worry written all over her face. It happened. What happened? Olivia asked weakly. Emma didn't answer, just silently handed her the open gift box. Olivia looked at the contents of the box and memories came flooding back. She felt a strong wave of nausea and then fainted again. Meanwhile, the atmosphere in the banquet hall became unusually tense. The photos were somehow scattered on the floor, causing a commotion. Many people bent down to view those photos, and then erupted into gasps and angry curses. This is my husband. A woman screamed, then pounced on her husband. You asshole. The other man picked up a picture and grimaced. Sarah, explain to me what's going on. The entire banquet hall was thrown into chaos. People argued loudly, and some even got physical. The carefully planned annual meeting turns into a farce, with everyone's scandals exposed in the light of day. In the midst of this chaos, George Edwards quietly slipped out of the ballroom. Fear and anxiety were written all over his face, and it was clear that he had been in those photos as well. Nathan, by this time, was already in a cab headed for the airport. He looked out the window of the car at the neon lights speeding past, his mind a mixture of emotions. He knew that starting tonight, a whole new page would be turned in his life. Though still filled with pain and anger, Nathan felt a sense of relief he had never felt before. He took a deep breath and closed his eyes. When he opened his eyes again, there was a determined gleam in them. Driver, please drive faster. Nathan whispered, I have a new life waiting for me. As the New York City skyline began to be colored a pale gold by the morning sun, Nathan Wright's plane slowly landed at the airport in Austin, Texas. He took a deep breath, feeling the new air, the new beginning. Meanwhile, New York City is in chaos. Olivia Bennett slowly opens her eyes and realizes she is lying in a hospital bed. Emma sat on the edge of the bed, exhaustion and worry written all over her face. Emma, what happened? Olivia asked weakly, her head still pounding. Emma sighed and handed Olivia a glass of water. You fainted at the annual meeting. Olivia, the doctor said you had a temporary fainting spell caused by excessive shock and stress. With Emma's words, the memories of the night before came flooding back. The pictures, the divorce papers, Nathan's departure. Olivia felt a twinge of heaven. Nathan? Where's Nathan? Olivia asked eagerly, a flicker of hope and fear in her eyes. Emma shook her head, sympathy in her eyes. He's gone, Olivia. And not just left the annual meeting. Just then, the door to the hospital room was pushed open and a middle-aged man in a suit walked in. Ms. Bennett, I'm Jason Moore, your husband, Mr. Nathan Wright's attorney. Olivia looked at the stranger in surprise, a sense of foreboding welling up in her heart. Jason Moore removed a stack of papers from his briefcase and said with a grimace, I have been instructed by Mr. Wright to serve the divorce papers. At the same time, I need to inform you that Mr. Wright has resigned from his job in New York and has now left the city. Olivia froze in place, staring incredulously at the file in Jason Moore's hand. She took the document with a shaky hand and saw divorce petition clearly written on it in big letters. This can't be. Olivia mumbled, tears streaming down her face uncontrollably. Jason Moore continues, Mr. Wright has prepared ample evidence, including photos and videos of your infidelity. If you choose to fight this divorce, this evidence will be made public in court. Considering your career and reputation, I recommend that you accept the terms offered by Mr. Wright. Olivia felt a wave of vertigo. She never thought it would come to this. She'd always thought of Nathan as the kind of honest man who could be manipulated at will, and had never imagined he'd take such decisive action. Meanwhile, in a fancy Austin apartment, Nathan is unpacking his bags. His cell phone suddenly vibrated with an email from Helen. Helen was the HR director at his former company and a key executor of his program. The contents of the email brought a bitter smile to Nathan's face. Helen describes in detail the chaotic scene after the annual meeting and the sorry state of Olivia and the others involved. More importantly, she confirms that Nathan's carefully prepared mail bomb has been successfully sent. Nathan reads through Helen's emails and remembers his elaborate mail bomb plan. The plan isn't just to get back at Olivia, it's to expose the hypocrisy and corruption of the whole circle. Before leaving New York, Nathan set up a series of timed emails. The emails contained all the evidence he had collected: photos, videos, recordings, and even transcripts of private conversations between Olivia and Deirdre. Each email is carefully choreographed to ensure maximum impact. The first wave of emails went out promptly at 6 a.m. the morning after the annual meeting. The addressees are the spouses of all those involved. Emily Parker, wife of George Edwards, was the first to open the mail. When she saw a photo of her husband and Olivia in an intimate embrace, her entire body broke down. Hysterically, she storms into the bedroom and beats a still sleeping George with a pillow. Meanwhile, Albert Thompson, Deirdre's husband, is checking his email. When he saw intimate videos of his wife with multiple men, his face turned pale instantly. He immediately dialed a divorce attorney and began working on the divorce papers. The second wave of emails went out at 9 a.m., targeting managing partners of major law firms. When the executives of the law firm Olivia and George work for saw the shocking evidence, they immediately called an emergency meeting. It was unanimously decided to suspend Olivia and George and initiate an internal investigation. A third wave of emails went out at 12 p.m., addressed to prominent journalists and media personalities in New York legal circles. The emails quickly ignited a media storm. The shocking scandal is being discussed on all major news sites and social media platforms. Headlines such as "Famous Lawyer in Deep Cheating Scandal" and "Collective Collapse of Luxury Marriages" dominated the headlines. At 3 p.m., a final wave of emails was sent to the NYSBA Board of Governors. The emails not only contained evidence of cheating, but also revealed professional misconduct by some of the attorneys involved, such as leaking client confidences and falsifying evidence. The council immediately announced that it would launch an investigation into the persons concerned and consider revoking their practicing certificates. The entire New York high society was thrown into unprecedented chaos. Marriage after marriage broken, career after career ruined. People begin to doubt everyone around them, and what once seemed like a harmonious social circle turns into a shambles. Olivia sat in her hospital bed, watching the steady stream of messages pouring in on her cell phone, feeling a wave of heavenly wonder. Her cell phone was constantly vibrating with interview requests from various media outlets and countless angry texts and voicemails. "Olivia, you bitch." It was Emily Parker's voice, full of anger and pain. "Ms. Bennett, please come to the law firm immediately. We need to talk." It was her boss, his tone cold and stern. "Honey, please tell me none of this is true." It was a message from her parents, her voice filled with disappointment and disbelief. Olivia sat paralyzed on the bed, feeling a wave of vertigo. She finally realizes that her carefully constructed perfect life is falling apart at an alarming rate. How could she have ever imagined that the ever-gentle Nathan would plan such a well-thought-out and devastating revenge? And in Texas, Nathan read Helen's email with mixed feelings. He knew that his behavior might be considered by some to be overly cruel, but he felt it was necessary. It was not only for himself, but also to expose the hypocrisy and corruption of the circle. Sometimes, Nathan said to himself, you have to destroy everything to start over. Nathan sat down on the couch and thought back to how he had planned all this step by step. From the moment he discovers Olivia's betrayal, he begins his own secret investigation. He hired private investigators and gathered a lot of evidence. He prepared silently, waiting for the right moment. The annual meeting was the perfect time for him to choose. Nathan closed his eyes and remembered those agonizing days. He used to love Olivia so much that he would do anything for her. But Olivia has betrayed his trust, not only by having affairs with other men, but also by mocking his stupidity and innocence behind his back. "I'll never be anyone's fool again," Nathan muttered, a flicker of determination in his eyes. Just then, Nathan's cell phone rang again. It's an unfamiliar number. Hello, is this Mr. Wright? A gentle female voice came from the other end of the line. This is Sarah, the Human Resources Manager of Austin Design Group. We have received your resume and are very interested in your work. I wonder if it would be convenient for you to come to the company for an interview. Nathan's mouth curled into a smile. It was his handpicked new firm, one of the top architectural firms in the United States. Sure, I'd love to, Nathan replied, confidence and anticipation in his voice. After hanging up, Nathan stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the Austin cityscape. The sun was shining and the sky was blue, as if foreshadowing his bright future. A new beginning, Nathan said softly. It's time to start over. Meanwhile, in New York, Olivia's world is falling apart. Immediately after her cheating behavior came to light, the firm's executives held an emergency meeting. Considering the impact the scandal could have on the company's reputation, they unanimously decided to suspend Olivia and launch an internal investigation. Olivia sat in her empty office and watched her co-workers avoid her gaze and whisper. She felt more alone and afraid than ever. Her cell phone kept vibrating with requests for interviews from various media outlets. Apparently, word of her scandal has spread and become a hot topic in legal circles. And in Texas, Nathan is embarking on a new chapter in his life. He successfully passed an interview with Austin Design Group and became the company's lead designer. As he stood in front of the floor-to-ceiling windows of his new office overlooking Austin's city skyline, Nathan felt a sense of freedom and ease that he had never felt before. "Thank you, Olivia," Nathan said softly, the corners of his mouth quirking into a bitter, relieved smile, "for reintroducing me to myself and giving me the courage to start a new life." As the sun sets, Nathan packs up his desk and prepares to leave the office. As he walked out of the building, a beautiful blonde smiled at him and greeted him. "Hi, you must be Nathan, the new head designer. I'm Emily, the marketing manager. Welcome to our family." Nathan smiled back politely, but found his heart beating faster involuntarily. Perhaps, Nathan thought to himself, this is the new opportunity fate has given me. Fall always comes unexpectedly in New York. As the first golden leaves fall from the trees in Central Park, it dawns on Olivia Bennett that nearly 10 months have passed since the New Year's Eve that changed her life. At the moment, Olivia sits alone in her once proud penthouse apartment, staring out the window at the gray skies, a haze hanging over her heart just like the city. She clutched a document in her hand, the diagnosis her psychiatrist had just issued: major depression. Olivia tossed the report aside with a bitter smile, her eyes absently sweeping over the awards and certificates on the wall. Those once symbols of her pride now seemed to mock her failures mercilessly. "You see, Olivia Bennett," she muttered to herself, bitterness in her voice. "Once a gold medal-winning attorney, now she can't even control her own life." Ever since Nathan revealed her cheating behavior, Olivia's life has been a roller coaster ride. Only this one is all downhill, not up. She lost her job, her law license was revoked, and her social circle instantly collapsed. The friends that once surrounded her are now shunned. The irony of it all is that those housewives she once despised are now the envy of her instead. At least they have families and husbands who love them. And Olivia, there's nothing left but this cold apartment. She picked up her cell phone, the screen showing dozens of missed calls and unread texts. Most were debtor collection notices, and some were media requests for interviews. Olivia mechanically deleted the messages when suddenly a text message from Deirdre caught her attention. "Olivia, I know you probably don't want to see anyone right now, but I think we need to talk. I'll meet you downstairs in the cafeteria." Olivia hesitated. Deirdre is the only one who has been willing to stay in touch with her during this fiasco. Even though both had lost everything, at least they had each other. Eventually, Olivia decides to go downstairs. Maybe talking to Deirdre will make her feel better. When Olivia walks into the cafe, she immediately notices Deirdre sitting in the corner. The once radiant woman was now haggard, her eyes full of exhaustion and despair. "Hi, Olivia," Deirdre forced a smile. "You're okay?" Olivia shook her head and sat down. "You and I both know that the word good is far from us. The two women were silent for a moment, each lost in their own thoughts. Eventually, Deirdre spoke up. Olivia, have you ever thought, maybe we're doing it wrong? Olivia looked up at Deirdre with some surprise. What do you mean? Deirdre sighed, a flicker of remorse in her eyes. I mean, maybe we shouldn't have treated our husbands that way. Maybe we were too selfish. Olivia felt a pang of heartache. She recalled Nathan's gentle smile, how he always quietly supported her career and never complained about her busy schedule. She, on the other hand, had failed his trust and love. You know, Olivia whispered, remorse in her voice, sometimes I dream about Nathan. In my dreams, we're still together, living an ordinary, happy life. Then I wake up and realize I'm alone. That feeling, it's more painful than losing everything. Deirdre reaches out and gently takes Olivia's hand. I understand, Olivia. I do it all the time too. But we can't keep living in the past. We need to move forward. Olivia nodded bitterly. Moving forward? Do we have a future, Deirdre? Just then, a news item suddenly came on the cafe's television. A familiar figure appears in front of the camera. There was Nathan, standing in front of a magnificent building with a smile of confidence and joy on his face. Renowned architect Nathan Wright's latest work was unveiled today in Austin. The building, which blends modernity and environmentalism, is being hailed as a landmark for the new century. Olivia stared blankly at the screen, her mind a mix of emotions. Nathan seems so happy and successful. She, on the other hand, is still hesitating where she is. Looks like someone has started a new life, Deirdre said softly, a hint of envy in her tone. Olivia didn't answer. Her eyes landed on the corner of the news footage where a beautiful blonde was intimately holding Nathan's arm. The kind of happiness and intimacy that used to belong to her. Suddenly, Olivia stood up. Deirdre, I think I know what we should do. Deirdre looked at her quizzically. What do you mean? We need to start over. Olivia's eyes flashed with determination. Not to undo the past, but to create a new future. We made mistakes, but that doesn't mean our lives are over. Deirdre seems to be touched by Olivia's words as she nods, and a spark of hope flares in her eyes. You're right, Olivia. But where do we start? Olivia took a deep breath and gave her first genuine smile in months. It starts with admitting our mistakes. Then we learn to forgive ourselves and find meaning in our lives again. Maybe we could do some volunteer work? Just then, Olivia's cell phone rings. It's an unfamiliar number. She hesitated, but picked up. Hello, is this Ms. Bennett? A gentle female voice came from the other end of the line. This is Sarah from the Women's Aid Center in New York. We have heard about your story and would like to invite you to come to our center to give a speech and share your experiences and feelings. What do you think of this idea? Olivia froze. She looked at Deirdre and then at Nathan's smiling face on the TV. Suddenly, she felt a peace she had never known before. I'd love to, Olivia replied, determination in her voice. Thank you for the opportunity. After hanging up, Olivia said to Deirdre, maybe this is our new beginning. Deirdre smiled, tears glistening in her eyes. Yeah, new beginnings. The two women looked at each other and smiled. And even though the road ahead was still full of unknowns, they knew that as long as they faced it bravely, they would always find their own happiness. Meanwhile, in faraway Texas, Nathan is standing in front of a building he designed and being interviewed by the press. When asked what inspires him to create, he smiles slightly and his gaze becomes deep. Sometimes, Nathan says softly, we need to experience some loss to truly appreciate it. This building is my new understanding of life. It's strong and flexible, just like the way we cope with life. After the interview, Nathan took the hand of the blonde woman next to him and said softly, Emily, let's go home. Emily smiled and nodded as the two walked hand in hand into the sunset. Nathan knew that he had finally found happiness that was truly his. Winter in Austin, Texas, is very different from New York. There was no biting wind, no flying snow, only mild sunshine and occasional thin clouds drifting by. Nathan Wright stood in the backyard of his newly acquired cottage and watched workers busily installing a dog kennel. Emily stood beside him, a steaming cup of coffee in her hand and a happy smile on her face. "Are you sure you want a big dog?" Emily asked softly. "I've heard that German Shepherds need a lot of exercise and care." Nathan turned his head and looked at Emily fondly. "Yes, I'm sure. You know what? I always wanted a dog, but Olivia always said it was too much trouble." He paused, a flash of remembrance in his eyes. "Maybe that's life, Emily. We always lose something while gaining something else." Emily gently took Nathan's hand. "I'm glad you acquired me." Nathan smiled and kissed Emily's forehead. "Me too, honey." Just then, Nathan's cell phone rang. He glanced at the caller ID, and a look of surprise crossed his face. "It's Helen," he said to Emily, "the HR director at my former company." Emily nodded. "Go ahead and get it. I'll check the oven in the kitchen." Nathan picked up the phone and Helen's voice came from the other end. "Nathan, it's been a long time. I hope I'm not disturbing you." "No, Helen. What's wrong?" Nathan asked, a little puzzled. Helen took a deep breath. "Here's the thing, Nathan. I know this request may be a little out of the blue, but, well, Olivia contacted me. She wants to speak with you." Nathan froze. He hasn't had any contact with Olivia since that New Year's Eve. He thought he had completely let go of the past, but at the moment, his heart still shuddered inevitably at the sound of Olivia's name. Why did she want to talk to me? Nathan struggled to maintain a calm tone. There was a hint of sympathy in Helen's voice. "She said she wanted to apologize to you. Nathan, she's in a rehab program and is now taking the final step, apologizing to the people she hurt." Nathan was silent. He thought back to the past, the fond memories, and the final betrayal and pain. He thought he had let go of everything, but at the moment, he realized that there was still a trace of an unresolved bond left deep inside. "Nathan," said Helen's voice, pulling him back to reality, "you don't have to decide now. If you need time to think—" "No," Nathan interrupted Helen. "Tell her I'll talk to her. But not right now. I need some time to prepare." After hanging up, Nathan stood still, looking at the distant horizon. The sunlight poured gently on his face, but waves rippled inside him. Emily came out of the kitchen, saw Nathan looking puzzled, and asked with concern, "Is something wrong, honey?" Nathan turned and looked into Emily's concerned eyes and felt a sudden warmth. He walked over and hugged Emily tightly. "Emily," he said softly, "I need to tell you something about my past, about Olivia." Emily patted Nathan's back gently. "It's okay, Nathan. I'm here and I'll always be here." That night, Nathan and Emily sat on the swing set in the backyard and had a long talk under the stars. Nathan tells the story of his and Olivia's journey from meeting and falling in love to the final betrayal and separation. Emily listened quietly, at times holding Nathan's hand comfortingly, at times gently wiping away tears from the corners of his eyes. "So," Emily said softly, "are you going to talk to her?" Nathan took a deep breath. "I guess so. Not for her, but for myself. I need to really let go of the past in order to embrace the future wholeheartedly." Emily smiled and kissed Nathan's cheek. "I'm proud of you, Nathan. It took a lot of courage." The next morning, Nathan dialed Olivia's number. A wave of mixed emotions flooded through him as he heard that familiar voice. "Nathan?" Olivia's voice was hesitant and apologetic. "Thank you for wanting to take my call." Nathan took a deep breath. "Hello, Olivia. Helen said you wanted to talk to me?" There was silence on the other end of the line for a moment, and then Olivia said softly, "Yes, Nathan. I want to apologize to you for everything I've done. I know it's probably too late, but I want you to know that I'm really sorry." Nathan closed his eyes and thought back to those agonizing days. But strangely enough, at the moment he felt only a sense of calm. "Olivia," he said slowly, "thank you for apologizing. I won't say that I've completely forgiven you, because that takes time. But I want you to know that I don't hate you anymore. In fact, I want to thank you." There was a surprised huff on the other end of the line. "Thank me? For what?" Nathan smiled and looked out the window. Emily was watering the flowers in the garden. The sunlight on her blonde hair was beautiful as a picture. "Because if I hadn't gone through all that, I might never have had the courage to change my life. Now, I have found the happiness that is truly mine. So thank you, Olivia. And I hope you find the happiness that's yours, too." There was a long silence on the other end of the line, and finally Olivia whispered, "Thank you, Nathan. I'm really happy for you. I, I'll keep trying. Maybe someday I'll be able to find inner peace like you." After hanging up, Nathan walked out into the garden and gently hugged Emily from behind. "It's over?" Emily asked gently. Nathan nodded. "Yes, it's over, but also a new beginning." He turned to Emily and looked deep into her eyes. "Emily, I think we should start planning our wedding. What do you think?" Emily's eyes instantly sparkled with happiness. "Oh, Nathan, of course I do." Just then, a cheerful bark interrupted the two. They turned their heads to see a lively German shepherd pup running happily toward them. Nathan smiled broadly and crouched down to catch the pouncing puppy. "It looks like we have a new addition to our family." He looked up at Emily with love in his eyes. "We have a great future ahead of us." Emily nodded and knelt down to stroke the puppy's fur. The sunlight poured over this cozy image, as if it were a sign of a bright future that was slowly unfolding. In faraway New York, Olivia puts down the phone and walks to the window. She looked out the window at the busy street and was filled with mixed emotions. But in the midst of all this complexity, a glimmer of hope is budding. "Perhaps," she whispered to herself, "I too can find happiness of my own." Outside the window, the first spring leaves are quietly blooming on the branches. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.